Okay, let me see how they gotta get the brightness up. Okay. All right. I think that should be. It's not super duper bright. Let me try to. I guess I can try to get it brighter. Not sure if my brightness is that great. Let's see. Can I manually increase the brightness? No, that's highlight. Filter. No. Alright, no filter. I don't know how to increase the brightness on this side. Let's see. I'm trying to increase the brightness, and the brightness is not going up, but alright, just let me know if you can hear me alright. My brightness is not going up at all. It's kinda flickering. God damn, I just need to get a goddamn camera instead of dealing with this phone, because this is not really working out right. I'll probably get a camera at some point. But anyway, if you can hear me all right, you should be able to see me okay. But all right, so we got chapter 484 of T-Babe. I just posted my review of 483 if you haven't seen that yet, but you guys can watch that after this live. But we got to talk about chapter 484, which is hell of a time. So basically, I'm really curious kind of where we go from the last chapter where they're introduced him into the Great Eight. And so Alaric. Who the fuck is Alaric? Who is Alaric? Oh, Alaric is the dude from Alacria. I didn't expect to go to him. Okay. So this is gonna be interesting, because I thought we was gonna continue on with Arthur, but no, we're going somewhere completely different. Okay, so let's just get into it. I don't know if I'm gonna do both chapters. I'll probably just end up doing one, but we'll see how it goes. So Alaric, man, there's a lot of brightness in my face. Leaning forward, I let my forehead knock against the rough surface of the table with a dull thunk. So, I mean, last time we heard from Alaric, he got captured, right? He got captured by one of the, it wasn't a scythe, was it? Wasn't a retainer? I think Alaric got captured by one of the retainers, and the one chick was there to try to help him get out or escape. So I'm really curious what the hell is going on with Alacria, with Agrona being captured, and like kind of what's all happening. But I'm just trying to refresh my memory with what happened with Alaric. But I believe he got captured, and the one chick that I think was Kara's friend growing up, who manifested her blood, I think that, and she was also part of that meeting. I think that she's the one that kind of like was gonna save him, I guess. I don't really remember for sure, but we'll see kind of what happens. I'm pretty sure as I keep reading, it will refresh my memory. So we'll just see what happens going forward. But what up? Leaning forward, okay. I let my forehead knock against the rough surface of the table with a dull thunk. I'll go myself, I grumbled, the words half smothered by the wood. We're pissing in the dark here. That's a horrible idea, Darren answered matter-of-factly. The others quickly echoed the sentiment. We don't know how to close Tager and Calum. We don't know how to close. Okay, I'm reading this wrong. We don't know how close to Tager and Calum your people managed to get before disappearing. I knocked my aching skull against the table a second time. We should know more shortly. Then I'll go. Without contact from Dicathan, seeing inside Tager and Calum might be our only way to know for sure. I sat up straight, and the world wobbled drunkenly. So this must be Alaric talking. But then you got Darren, who's also there too. So I'm not sure what's going on with Darren. Let me see. Okay. Um, so let's see. I sat up straight and the world wobbled drunkenly, which was incredibly ironic considering that I myself was stone cold sober. So he's actually sober for the first time. Wow. Um, Looking around, I took in the 15 or so people gathered in the second floor study of a stately townhouse that overlooked Cardigan's main what is it? Thoroughfare? Yeah, Cardigan's main thoroughfare. Some were keeping up a pretense of staying busy and not outwardly paying attention to my conversation with Darren, but all of their ears were conveniently turned in our direction, but didn't bother to hide their attentiveness, waiting with nervous eagerness to be involved one way or another. Not one of them looked particularly enthused by the idea of me limping off into the Basilisk Fame Mountains to see why our people kept disappearing around the forest of Tagan Kalin without so much as a bloody trail, a trail to follow. What? You don't think I'm up to it? I growled, meeting eyes two by two, then smirking in grim satisfaction as they fell or turned away, all except Darren. I waved him off, reaching for the flask on my belt, stopped short, and then raped my knuckles against the wood before me. Bah! Go home, Darren. There's nothing for you to do here, and your peck of orphans will be missing you. Darren's face fell, and I felt a flush of guilt and regret rise up my neck. Most of those in Darren's care were the children of mages who had either been in Dicathan already or were sent to Dicathan in the most recent attack to hunt down Arthur Lewin. With no communication from Dicathan and few enough soldiers returning, we had no way to know how many of their blood survived. Too many ascenders have been swallowed up into the belly of this war, Darren said softly. Looking at the floor, between those, so he said softly, looking at the floor. Between those who went with Ceres, those conscripted to launch this failed attack, and those still suffering the after effects of the shockwave. The after effects of the shockwave. Oh, is he talking about the shockwave from Arthur? He must be talking about the shockwave from Arthur that he had did with the Corona. That must be what he's talking about. So they're still suffering the after effects of the shockwave. All of Lacria has ground to a halt. Those who are left need help. A movement in the shadows behind the others drew my attention. The specter of my former commander stood with her arms crossed, her face hidden by shadow and the golden hair that fell half across her face. Wait, last time we saw this little commander of his, this female commander, he was like drunk, right? He was like drunk, and he wasn't drunk. So when he wasn't drunk, that's when he get these visions of his commander and talking to her and shit. And so the reason why he continuously stays drunk is so that he doesn't get these visions. But he said that he was sober, so it makes sense for him to get these visions now. So the movement in the shadows, his former commander stood, her face hidden by shadow and the golden hair that fell half across her face. I swallowed heavily. Took a stuttering breath and then stood suddenly, nearly knocking my chair over. Turning my back on the specter and everyone else in the room, I moved to a window overlooking the street. The usually busy road was empty. High Blood, Koenig had declared martial law in Cardigan in the hours after the shockwave, cutting off all unofficial. Wait, okay, this kind of just looked weird. Cutting off all unofficial travel, shutting down the Ascenders Association and Central Academy, and co-signing residents to their homes except for essential workers. Essential workers, right? Sounds like something that America and everybody else went through. Essential workers, they're the only ones that are allowed to come out. Anyway, there have been rumblings of a minor rebellion, but the appearance of Scythe Drogoth and a retinue of soldiers, mages, and instillers silenced any willingness among the population, mostly weak mages or unadorned, to challenge the High Bloods. Drogoth and his retinue had taken over Central Academy and has so far been very aggressive about allowing anyone else within a fireball's throw of the campus. But they'll get in, I'm sure of it. As if the thought conjured him, A reedy little stick of a man, drowning in unkempt robes, appeared at the end of the street, sprinting up the street like there was a pair of shadow panthers on his heels. He was alone. I cursed. One of our enforcers, a rugged bruiser named Akron, rushed to the window and looked out. He cursed as well. Everyone, wrap it up. There's a decent chance this location is blown. I don't even understand what's going on right now. Let's see. Saley? I don't even know how you say that name. But Saley, start clearing the building. I barked. Already heard. Is he having like flashbacks? Maybe he's having like flashbacks or something. So he barked, already hurrying toward the stairs down to the first floor. Akron, Valish, your team's with me. Catching Darren's eye from the corner of my own, I added, so I don't even understand is this, so he's not flashback. So this is actually happening because he got Darren saying, Darren, eye from the corner of my own, I added, and you get the abyss out of this dominion. You get the abyss out of this dominion. Go home, Darren, I mean it. If he answered, I didn't hear it over the stomping of many sets of feet on the stairs and the hammering in my head. I'm a little confused reading this chapter, but I'm just kind of going along with it. But I know it is Alaric. Something's going on. I don't even know for sure. If he answered, I didn't hear it over the stomping of many sets of feet on the stairs and hammering in my head. I was across the house and crashing out the front door into the street in moments. Still halfway down the block, Edmund of Blood Scarvin, a shady little man who had acted as my back door in academic circles, screamed when he saw me appear. So it seems like this is like current day, what's going on. A couple 100 feet behind him, 4 high-blood K-neck soldiers gave chase. Even as he turned to glance desperately back at his pursuers, one of them raised hand. One of them raised hand and mana flared. The shadows in the street were growing long as the sun moved in the west overhead, and suddenly those shadows flared with green light. Radiant ooze splashed across the paving stones, sizzling and popping as they ate into the road and the mana shield that had enveloped Edmund at the last second. The shield beside me had sweat running down. The shield beside me had sweat running down her face as she fought off to hold the potent attack. Sir, Valish asked, his voice lipsing through his scarred lips. I met his one good eye and nodded. A sharp pop sounded amidst the pursuing mages, and they all hit the ground, shouting in pain and covering bleeding ears with their hands. The air around them distorted as Akron's crest activated, pressing heavily down on their chests with a combination of dense air and enhanced gravity. Conjured shields caged them in, blocking their last few futile spells until one by one their eyes rolled in the back of their heads and they passed out from lack of oxygen. Okay, so it seems like this is actually happening in real life. And I'm guessing he's trying to escape or something like that that's going on. And I'm guessing he's trying to escape. And these people are the ones that's protecting him from the pursuers. Edmund stumbled to a stop in front. I really don't know for sure what's going on. Edmund stumbled to a stop in front of me, his hands on his hips and his head thrown back as he sucked desperately at the air. Thanks, he choked out after a moment. I glowered at him. Where's the Severin boy? Tristan. He blanched, taking a half step back. They caught us, Alaric. We ran for it. I just barely made it over the wall, but the boy... He trailed off, refusing to meet my eyes. I glanced at the surrounding buildings. A few faces were already pressed against windows to watch the commotion. Turning to Akron and Valish, I said, you know where you need to be. Go. Darren was standing in the doorway to the townhouse we'd just evacuated. I said go home. You a bunch of potential orphans who need you. I'll be in touch. Grabbing Edmund by the collar of his shirt, I hurriedly marched him to the closest alley and shoved him into it. If they're not already on the way, reinforcements from High Blood Koenig will be soon. Or worse, was there any sign of the scythe? His retainer? Never mind. Let's get moving. We can talk when it's safer. As I finished speaking, I heard footsteps following and turned back. Darren pulled a hood up to cover his features as he ducked into the alley after us. I still have a couple things to do in Cardigan, before I head home. I chewed the inside of my cheek and fingered the flask at my belt. No, I won't be responsible for telling that foster kid of yours that you got yourself caught or killed by being obstinate. Darrell's brows raised and he gave me a tight-lipped smile. You know all about being obstinate, Al. Why are you still carrying that flask around if you don't want to drink from it? I need to be myself, I said under my breath, carefully not to look at the shadow of the woman standing beside Darren, a small squirming bundle in her arms. Is that his kid? Ugh, that's gotta be tough. A small squirming bundle in her arms. I added, I need to be more than the drunken ascender I've been for these last decades. Darren's mouth opened to reply. He didn't have the words. Sighing and flexing my shaking hands, I considered how best to get rid of Darren. But I had to be careful. I checked the windows and corners to ensure we weren't being followed by anyone else, then turned and went down another alley. After a couple more hurried turns, I knew that any Lucky Loos who might have watched us lead the fight wouldn't be able to see us anymore, even if they'd hurried through one of the buildings on the side of the street to try and keep track of us and win some favor from High Lord Koenig or Scythe Dragoff for their efforts. Fumbling with one of the buttons affixed to my leather wrist guards, I activated it and called on an item within the attached dimensional space. A fancy silver necklace appeared in my hand. It was feminine and far too dainty to look natural on anyone but a high-blood lady, but I hadn't exactly been able to choose the design. I pressed the necklace into Edmund's hands. Put this on now. I growled when he started to question me. What good is hiding my features now? He complained. I never should agree to. He trailed off, and the apple of his throat bobbed as he swallowed hard before fumbling to get the dainty jewelry around his scrawny neck. Oh, hurry up! I snapped, looking around again. Mana was pumping into my ears, enhancing my hearing as much as I was capable. I thought I could hear armored feet pounding down the street quite a distance away. Here, let me, Darren said, giving me a look and helping Edmund fasten the necklace. Once it clipped around his neck, there was an immediate pulse from the mana contained inside it, and the features of Edmund's face seemed to go kind of blurry and indistinct, depending on the angle I looked at him from. So why are they trying to hide Edmund's face? I'm still, so you got like Dragoth, he kind of separated, and he got his whole crew. All right, let's just keep reading. Depending on the angle I looked at him, he could have looked like a dozen different people at a glance. No one would be able to recognize him or properly describe him afterwards. Taking a heavy cloak from my dimension artifact, I pressed it into him hard enough to knock him back into the wall. Wrap yourself up, be quiet, and follow me. I turned, set my jaw, and I looked hard into Darren's eyes. We need to split up. You go that way, we'll go this way. I gestured with my thumb. Darren shook his head, his arms crossed over his chest. Stop trying to be so damn self-sacrificing, Al. If we get tangled up with a patrol, you'll need someone who can actually fight. He carefully avoided looking at the blurry Edmund beside me. Damn it, boy! You only draw extra attention to us. I snapped, panic building in my guts. Go that way. Circle around and head to the library. It's shuttered. Yeah, shuttered. It's shuttered, but a couple of the guards on duty responded well to bribes. Keep trying to follow us, and I swear I'll knock you on your ass. Darren's jaw fell slack, his eyes as wide as if he'd just seen a Wogart playing Sovereign Squirrel. I turned my back on him and marched quickly away. Edmund hesitated only a moment, then began to follow. We kept mostly to the alleys, at least in the beginning, though we were soon forced into the larger roads. While the empty streets meant a lot fewer eyes to avoid, it also meant there was no crowd to blend into. Even if passing guards couldn't identify Edmund, they'd surely recognize that something was wrong, or clock us just for being outside. Okay, so I don't understand really where they're going at this moment, but it seems like Darren's finally kind of did what he wanted him to do and not follow them. So I'm still figuring out what this is all leading to. Is Sarah's going to come in at some point, or I'm still kind of understanding what the hell's going on. But so they're going to make sure that Edmund doesn't get recognized. So what's happening at the academy? I asked under my breath when I thought it was safe to talk. Edmund, his blurred face barely visible beneath the deep hood, cast about nervously before replying. All the instillers and staff that have been trickling into the city from Tigran Kalem are holed up there, as you thought. I would go so far as to say that they're in prison. Really, Dragoth is working hard to ensure that word of what's happening doesn't leak out into the populace. And were you able to find out anything about what's happening? I asked. Apparently, part of the fortress collapsed when the shockwave happened. After that, the fortress itself seemed to turn against its inhabitants, friend or foe alike, many, many dead. So the shockwave from Agrona ended up affecting Tigran Kalem, and the fortress turned against the inhabitants. That's kind of strange. Or maybe the Jinn started to control everything. I don't know. So in the High Sovereign, there was a long pause. I grabbed the sleeve of Edmund's shirt and pulled him close. Were you able to learn anything about Agrona? Edmund cleared his throat nervously. It's only a rumor. By the High Sovereign's inflamed arse. Edmund, my words cut off as I saw the lithe silhouette of my commander's specter half hidden in a nearby doorway, face in shadow as it was framed by her hair. Distracted, I thought about exactly how long it had been, wondering if her hair had actually sat that way on her face, or if I had simply made it up as my tired, sober, brittle old mind manifested a dead woman as if she were really there. Edmund failed to notice the direction of my gaze. Apparently, a few of the mechanical recording artifacts around Dicathlon are still operational. He hesitated again, his expression muddled by the disgusting artifact. One of them collected a wraith who returned it to Alacria. Only a few saw its contents. I waited, growing increasingly irritated with Edmund's beating around the bush. Perhaps he noticed because he hurried onward. Almost everyone who saw the recording was killed. Okay. Then how does anyone know what was on it? Because one of the instillers responsible for reviewing it fled before Dragoth caught wind of this all. Oh, so one of the instillers found it and got rid of it and fled before Dragoth could kill him. Edmund said, his brows rose, and he gave me a meaningful look. Do these rumors suggest what's on the recording? Edmund's answering smile was strange on his nebulous mug. Only that it proves that the High Sovereign is gone for good. My mind was racing as I redrew my plans on the fly. This gambit had already been reckless, but if Tigran Kalem really was inaccessible, even to a scythe, and there was proof that Agrona was dead or captured, it has to be worth it. I led Edmund off the street and around the back of a closed up, Accolade shop. As I channeled into the Manilock, the door opened from inside. I had only a moment to take in a man in black and crimson plate armor. One short onyx horn stuck up from the unkept hair. Ooh, is that the one dude? Cause I think Kara ended up like knocking off one of his horns or something like that. Is that the one dude that was fighting Kara? So one short onyx horn stuck up from the unkept hair above a bright red eye. With no horn, while no horn was visible on the other side, where the eye was a murky brown. Suddenly, his fist was wrapped in the front of my shirt, and I was flying forward. I had just enough time to protect myself with mana before I smashed through the shop's front window and went sprawling across the street. With a moan, I lifted my head from the paving stones and brushed glass out of my beard. A little bell rang, and the front door of the shop opened. The ritual-blooded man dragged Edmund through it. He stopped in front of me, staring down like a beak-like nose. Oh, staring down a beak-like nose. I trembled with pain and rage. One scarlet eye, one brown eye. I spit blood at his feet. Wolfram of High Blood Redwater, traitor and double agent. I had heard of his treachery, how he had nearly captured Lady Kara, but I hadn't seen him in this form, only as the bent back little weasel that had been his cover, and I hadn't immediately recognized him. The ghostly vision of my once commander, now leaning against the wall beside him or behind him, gave me a sad look and an apologetic shake of her head, almost as if she regretted not being flesh and blood so she could help me. The sun was behind me, only just peeking over the distant rooftops. Conditions weren't ideal for any of my magic, but I couldn't let him take me in without a fight. So he went inside one of the accolade shops and found Wolfram. Wolfram. So anyway, he didn't let him take him without a fight. In Wolfram's grip, Edmund began to shake and wheeze. Please, he made me. I didn't have a choice. I can tell you whatever you want. Wait, I can tell you whatever you want to know. Just don't hurt. The silver necklace constricted rapidly, choking off Edmund's words before sawing into his neck. Okay, why is the necklace killing him? Blood ran hot and thick down his chest as his face came clearly into view. He stared at me, horrified and confused, his white lips moving wordlessly. Sorry, Ed, I thought, retracting my mana from the artifact. Oh, he empowered the artifact and he cut him off so that way he wouldn't spill the beans. Sorry, Ed, I thought, retracting my mana from the artifact, which assured anonymity in more ways than just hiding one's face. As Wolfram regarded the dying man with surprise and irritation, I took advantage of the distraction to begin channeling my emblem, Sunflare. The Vitraborn dropped Edmund unceremoniously on the street, and the commoners think we're black-hearted, he said, turning back to me with one brow raised. Mana rushed into Sunflare, and in the glare of the sun blazed across the street, turning the entire sky white. Wolfram hissed and raised a hand over his closed eyes. Activating myopic decay, I focused it on my own eyes, instead of my enemies, dimming my vision against the glare as I scrambled to my feet and made a run for it. Something hit me from behind, lifted and spun me in the air, and slammed me down again. I was vaguely aware of bouncing a couple of times before I came to blessed rest, unmoving. I knew that this time I hadn't escaped unscathed, but as long as I didn't move, I wouldn't feel all the pain quite yet. Hell of a time to quit drinking, the shade of my commander commented, leaning down beside me. Hell of a time to be dead, I shot back breathlessly. Both my spells had faded, and I expected Wolfram would be satisfied with my attempt to run. Instead of approaching me, though, he gave a grunt of effort, and there was a dull rush of air. He gave a grunt of effort, and there was a dull rush of air. I jerked over onto my side, my entire body raw and bruised, but I barely felt it past the rolling of my insides and the clenching of my heart. Darren flew up the street from behind Wolfram, blasting the Vitraborn with a rapid-fire series of wind-lengthened punches and kicks. Filled with desperation, I sent out a sharp pulse with aerial disruption, or a rule. I don't know what the hell that word is. Anyway, he focused on Wolfram. He flinched, just missing with a jet of black flames, soulfire, aimed at Darren's chest. Oh, Darren, bruh, Darren. Okay. I think I wasn't paying attention. Okay, so I jerked over onto my side, my entire body raw and bruised, but I barely felt it passing the rolling of, past the roiling of my insides and the clenching of my heart. Darren flew up the street behind Wolfram, blasting the Vitraborn with a rapid-fire series of wind-lengthened punches and kicks. Filled with desperation, I sent out a sharp pulse with aerial disruption, focused on Wolfram. He flinched, just missing with a jet of black flames, soulfire, aimed at Darren's chest. So he was like inches away from hitting Darren, and so because he used that aerial disruption, he interfered, and he was that close from getting hit. Damn you, boy, I grunted, heaving myself to my feet. Every joint from my neck down complained, and I could feel a broken rib stabbing at the soft tissue of my insides. Forcing the pain down, I reached for the third level of myopic decay. My body became a series of shadowy blurs. I stumbled forward, no longer able to run or even pretend to. My entire plan had fallen apart between one breath and the next. Go, fool! I've got this under control! Darren gave no indication he heard me as he danced around a series of soulfire bolts carried on black lines of void wind. See, I wonder what's going to happen with Darren, bro. Man, the kids need him. The kids need Darren. They don't need Darren to be out here fighting and getting killed. Who gonna take care of them? Which is what Alaric was trying to do in the first place. But you asked me what was my favorite volume. I don't know. I haven't really gone through volume by volume to figure out which one was my favorite. I will say this: whatever volume was right after Arthur ended up using he ended up waking up in the relic tombs. That volume going forward, that's probably my favorite volume, because once Regis got into the fold, that's when the story for me went way up. So probably be that volume right after he woke up in the relic tombs. But anyway, so his body became a series of blurs, told him to go. He gave no indication that he heard him. For my dimension artifact, I withdrew a handful of paper-wrapped capsules, tossing them into the air. I released a quick blast of aerial disruption, destroying them. Thick smoke began to pour into the street, very fine. Sparkling dust was suspended in the smoke, and I again poured mana into Sunflare. The dust shone like 10,000 stars, burning through the smoke and making it impossible to see through. Bending low, I ran toward where I could still feel the burst of mana and hear the hiss and pop of spells slamming together. Darren was falling back into the obscuring cloud, but gusts of void wind were wiping away the cover as quickly as it could form. A black blade appeared in my hand, and I imbued the charwood with as much mana as I could spare to focus on. With a sudden burst of aerial disruption, followed by a lesser casting of myopic decay, targeted at Wolfram, I flew past Darren as he deflected a series of whirling skulls of fire, threw myself at his attacker. Wolfram's mismatched eyes narrowed in intense concentration, and a shield of black wind wrapped around him. My blade dragged across the surface of the shield, and our mana sparked and crackled as they fought against each other. His proved the stronger. His proved the stronger, and my weapon failed to pierce his shield. I pulled the short sword to my side and fell forward into a roll, barely avoiding a scything blade of void wind that cut the air behind me. I'm wondering what's going to happen, man. Somebody's got to show up to help out, because... Oh, you know who can help out? Lyra. I can see Lyra showing up. Maybe Sarah told Lyra to go back to Alacri or something like that. Or I can see Salrith. I can see Salrith coming up and him helping out or something like that. I can see somebody like either Salrith or Lyra, one of the retainers. I can see them coming to help out. But somebody's got to come help out though, right? So anyway, I pulled the short sword to my side and fell forward into a roll, barely avoiding a scything blade of void wind that cut the air behind me. Alaric of Blood, is that Moar? I don't know how to say his last name. Moar or whatever. The Richer Blood's voice was like ice water in my face. You've been quite the irritant over these last months. You should have quit while you were ahead. Sticking that bulbous red wart you call a nose into Cypher Dragos' affairs would be the end of you. I was back on my feet, my blade held out in front of me. Behind Wolfram, the cloud was slowly starting to disperse, but I couldn't see Darren. A grateful breath escaped me. He'd escaped. Tell you what, boy, I said, releasing the mana channeling into Sunflare as the stone dust settled, no longer providing a surface to enhance the light of it. I don't think Darren escaped. He's still there. A hard box appeared in my left hand, which I kept hidden behind my back. The war is over. Your High Sovereign is probably dead. Your boss, the Scythe, was mutilated and embarrassed. My boss, much as she never really was that, is missing and hasn't made contact with Alacria since the shockwave. Why don't we just agree to go our separate ways, eh? I raised a brow meaningfully. This continent is hurting. How many mages hasn't recovered yet? Entire cities like this one have shut down. All we're trying to do is get people back on their feet. Wolfram's face had settled into a sneer as I spoke. The High Sovereign will return, and when he does, we will gift him with mountains of skulls, which is all that will remain of your traitorous faction. I took a step back, my eyes darting around as if searching for an escape route. Wolfram smiled. In his confidence, he relaxed. Pathetic. I expected more of a man trained as one of Alacria's finest spies. His his countenance darkened. Wait, here, his countenance darkened. Yes, we know who you are. Now, it's impressive you managed to survive this long. Like any old sick dog, though, there comes a time when you need to be put down. His hand curled into a fist, and dark fire and wind began condensing around him. In the flames to either side of Wolfram, the shadowy figures appeared again. My old commander, the woman who had helped me escape my service to the High Sovereign, stood to Wolfram's right, the shape of her flickering and dancing. To his left, the other woman, the one with the blue bundle in her arms, my wife, my family. It's your funeral, I grumbled, although I knew the words were only that. A burning skull large enough to swallow me whole coalesced around Wolfram before plunging forward. Its gaping maw opened wide. I tossed down the mana cage I'd been clutching. The transparent mana sprang upward and folded out into a flat, transparent wall between me and him. The skull struck it, and the barrier trembled. With a burst of aerial disruption and as much mana as I could manage into the third level of my crest, I turned and sprang away. The street, and so he had an artifact that helped him survive. Okay. So he still got some tricks, but he's still hurt though, because he said his lung was punctured, or his rib was broken, and it was puncturing his insides. So he's still hurt. I wonder if he's really gonna get away. And what the hell happened to Darren? So in the street in front of me exploded as a wall of black void wind ripped up through the stones. He's not safe. A wall of black void wind ripped up through the stones. I slammed hard on my back, and the breath crushed out of me by the blow. Aching and breathless, I couldn't move. Only watched as Darren, told you he wasn't gone, Darren appeared from the high balcony of a nearby home. His body wrapped in wind attribute mana. In the half second it took him to fall, a hail of blows struck Wolfram from behind and above, staggering him. Darren struck the ritual blood with a knee between the shoulder blades, driving Wolfram to the ground. Fists wrapped in cutting wind fell faster than my wavering red-stained vision could follow. Darren is kicking his ass, man. Okay. But we'll see what's gonna happen, because they got high durability and shit, right? So red stained vision. So his fist wrapped in cutting wind fell faster than his red stained vision could follow. The giant skull of soulfire and void wind erupted. Darren was lifted off Wolfram's back by a blaze of black fire, and the mana barrier shattered with a sound like cracking stone. As if everything moved in slow motion, I saw clearly how the black flames was drawn into Darren's open mouth and eyes, even into his pores. I felt the soul fire take root inside his core, the spectral heat of it burning within him. He struck the ground like a bag of sand, his body limp, his eyes rolled in the back of his head. With a rush of adrenaline, I threw myself back to my feet and stumbled past Wolfram, who was himself standing slowly, as if unconcerned for our ongoing battle. I barely noticed the screaming of my knees as I fell onto them beside Darren, gripping his limp hand in my own. "I told you to go!" I moaned, all my strength leaving me. The shadow of my old commander knelt across from him. Her fingers brushed across his cheek, not smudging the dirt and blood that stained him. "Forgive me, boy," I choked out as the soul fire was burning away everything that made Darren himself. I sensed Wolfram moving behind me, but the danger he posed no longer mattered. At the sound of my voice, some life returned to Darren. He gripped my hand, and his eyes found mine. They were full of dancing soul fire. He tried to speak, but all that came out was a pained groan. His teeth clenched and his back spasmed. His hand was wrenched from mine. The ghost of my commander shifted, suddenly in front of me. Her hand cupped my face, and her piercing brown eyes burrowed into mine. "This isn't your fault, Alaric. None of it has been your fault." I let my head hang. "We both know that's not true, Cynthia." Strong fingers took me by the hair and dragged me to my feet. Pick up your friend. So long as you don't resist further, I'll withhold my fire. Test me and he dies in an instant. In case you think that you might end his suffering that way, trust me that dying by soul fire is not a fate you will wish on anyone you care for, and in the end will only increase your own suffering many times over. I spat blood on the ground at my captor's feet, but I bent down to lift Darren as he commanded. You don't know shit about suffering, boy. Nothing you can do to me now can be worse than what you've inbred Vitra dogs have already done. Man, oh man. Somebody's got to show up though, right? So I wonder why he doesn't kill him already. So he wants him to pick up Darren, so that way I guess he wants to get more information from Alaric. I'm guessing that's what's happening. He just wants to get more information. But man, that's unfortunate, man. That's unfortunate. Darren was cool, man. Darren was cool. It's a shame. It's a shame. But I didn't expect to. I am going to read the next chapter, but I didn't expect for it to go to Alaric though. I thought we was going to continue on with Arthur, but I guess we can't get too much of a good thing, right? But yeah. So this was cool. Darren getting beat up and stuff by Wolfram. I mean, he kind of didn't stand a chance. Like, I mean, Wolfram was like retainer level at that point. He was never even close to retainer level. Like, he's good. He's solid for an ascender. He's good for an ascender, but he's not up there, man. But yeah, that's unfortunate. It's fortunate. Got to keep Arthur's POV scarce. Yeah. Like I said, can't get too much of a good thing, right? I'm still waiting for us to get a POV from either Mordain or from Kezis. Like, I would love to know what the hell Kezis is thinking. Like, I wonder if he went back to his throne room and he was like, this fucking boy, just like, you know, pissed off, fucking burning shit up or something like that, right? Because he's just pissed off with how much he know and how powerful he is or something like that. He's like, okay, let me calm down. I can't let my emotions control me. You know, like, it'd be so crazy to see like him losing control and shit, and then you got Mario just calm down, honey, it's all right. Like, we can still control the situation, you know. Like, that'd be cool to kind of get, but we haven't gotten that yet. So all right, so chapter 485 Cerys. We got Cerys Vitra. Let's see what good old Cerys is doing. But that chapter was solid though. I'll give it like a solid 7.5 out of 10. In the beginning, I didn't know what the hell was going on, but it started to kind of follow and make more sense toward the end, with Edmund getting, you know, killed, and, you know, Darren showing up and he wouldn't leave, and the fight. I don't know how the hell they went into Wolfram anyway. They went into some alkali shop or whatever, and Wolfram just happened to be there. Is a day I transcend satisfaction. I got you. All right, so Cerys Vitra. I stood silently, surrounded by a collage of orange, purple, and aquamarine crystals, sparkling with yellow and white. The Hall of Lords within Lodenhold was surprisingly pretty. Was a surprisingly pretty place. Sheesh. Surprisingly pretty place. Let me get something to drink. Okay. It was a surprisingly pretty place for the gruff dwarves to convene. But I always found the dwarven people to be a cautious alchemy of pragmatism and romanticism, even though they would certainly find the description insulting. Around the long, ornate table at the Geo's heart were several dwarves representing multiple clans. Chief among them were the Earthborns and the Silver Shells. Also present was Virian Aerolith. So they having like some meeting? Also present was Virian Aerolith, de facto leader of the remaining elven people. De facto, because they already know that Arthur is the real leader of everybody in Decathlon. Yeah, the remaining elven people. Kathleen Glader, Catherine, we like Catherine, who represented the affairs of the human nation of Sapin, and Gideon Basti. Is this the first time getting Gideon's last name? Or maybe I just haven't heard it in a long time. Gideon Bastius, I guess. Chief inventor and scientist behind the advent of the Beast Corps, Daikathon's newest weapon. Where's Ren? Ren should be there too, right? Their conversation had gone on for quite some time with minimal input from me. This suited me just fine. The people of Daikathon were terrified. The dragons had retreated to their home of Ephiodus with only a cursory notice to this world's leaders. Few beyond this chamber even knew that they'd captured Agrona Vritra. So she knows. Okay. Few beyond this chamber even knew that they'd captured Agrona Vritra. Alakria was free of him, even if they didn't know it yet. But his sudden absence created a host of new dangers for my people. Allowing Agrona and Kez's Indref to further weaken each other. Weaken each other had been essential to the continued safety of our world. I feared this was a mistake on Arthur's part, although I could not see all ends. Wait, let me see. What is she talking about? This is something with Arthur. What? Allowing Agrona and Kez's Indref to further weaken each other had been essential to the continued safety of our world. Okay, that makes sense. Let the two of them fight each other, weaken each other, right? Distractions. I fear this was a mistake on Arthur's part. What was a mistake? Was it a mistake on Arthur's part to let them fight each other, I guess? But they didn't really fight each other. So I don't know what she means when she says that it was a mistake on Arthur's part. Although I could not see all ends and only time would tell. So much work undone in an instant. I caught myself and tamped down my frustration before it could leak out onto my face. No, perhaps not undone entirely. But if Arthur isn't able to dissuade them, the Asuras of Ephiodus are now potentially an even greater threat. So she's thinking about Ephiodus. And she's thinking about the threat that they pose now that they got Agrona. So what? Like, she's thinking that they're going to, like, annihilate Alakria, I guess? I'm just wondering what she's thinking as far as, like, them being a threat. I mean, we know they're a threat because they can come down and try to wipe you out, but do they want to do that, though? Like, I can see Kez is seeing Arthur as an enemy, but what reason would he have to, like, wipe out Alakria or Daikathon? Like, he already has Agrona, so, like, what would he need to do? Maybe he wants to get rid of the Wraiths, maybe? What do you say? No, I think it's just Agrona's absence, and thus there's nobody to balance out Kez's. So what? So Kez is not distracted anymore because he ain't got to worry about Agrona, so he can focus his attention on, I guess, But he's supposed to not even care about Daikathon and Alakria, so... But I don't understand. What would she have expected from Arthur to do? Like, was he supposed to kill Agrona or something? Like, or kill Kez? I don't know. But let me just keep reading. But if Arthur is not able to dissuade them, the Asuras of Ephiodus are now potentially an even greater threat. Near the far end of the table, Duergar Silvershell, heir apparent to his father, Dagolum, Lord of Clan Silvershell, had been silently stewing on some thought for several minutes as the others discussed the situation in Voldorial. I watched the way he tossed his graying hair, scratched at his freshly trimmed beard, and kept shooting me dark looks, his slate gray eyes full of fear and contempt. Finally, he burst out, "Why do we not take the battle to Alakria?" That's stupid. The hall went silent as the other lords and their guests turned to him, cheeks turning ruddy at becoming the center of attention. The guard nonetheless lifted his chin and met all eyes with a look of challenge. "We have many of their warriors in prison here in Voldorial. As you were just discussing, the number of prisoners is so great that we've had to dig out 2 additional fresh prisons just to hold them all. Their supreme leader is gone, many of their greatest powers defeated. For the first time in this whole damn war, we can attack from a place of strength." Although several of those present glanced at me as if awaiting a response, I was not invited to speak. And while that was not strictly a deterrent, it was in my benefit to adhere to their decorum for the moment. I seen this anger and frustration building within the people of Daikathan over the last couple of weeks, but I also saw their fatigue and war weariness. Although some may push for more violence now that Dugar had correctly suggested, the balance of power was perhaps tipping toward Daikathan. I did not think that there was any danger. Lance Micah Earthborn leaned back in her seat and kicked one leg up over the other. Her black gemstone eye reflected the many-colored crystals around us. Arthur is in Ephiodus. Lance Viray is recovering from her wounds in Ediston. Our own armies are haggard and depleted from half a decade of constant conflict. If Agrona really is defeated, then there is no reason to continue the war. There were a few mumbled agreements to her words. I mean, that makes sense, right? Why would you need to take the fight to them? Like, the fight should be over unless one of the sides came in and it was still attacking, or the Wraiths like banded together and they did some assaults or something like that. It wouldn't make any sense to kind of continue in the fight, you know? There were a few mumbled agreements to her words, but others looked less sure, including her own father, Carnelian Earthborn, whose voice would be essential to any decision the council came to. We have these machines, Dugar answered, gesturing to Gideon. The Beast Corpse and, what did you call these things again? Exoforms, Gideon answered. Ink-stained fingertips brushed over patchy brows as he considered the table. His eyes only barely touched mine before focusing on Lord Earthborn. Since Arthur isn't here to speak, and it was on his orders that his support... Wait, they gotta go back to Arthur, man. Loyalty, right? Since Arthur isn't here to speak, and it was on his orders and with his support that the Beast Corps was formed, I will risk speaking on his behalf. He would not agree to attack Alacrity. Daglon Silvershell, lord of his clan, tugged at his braided beard anxiously. And is Arthur Lewin a human boy, less than half the age of my youngest son? Bro, wait, what are you talking about? Like, are we all just forgetting all the shit that he done done? Like, there's no way he doesn't know everything that he's done thus far. Like, he literally single-handedly took back, what, Black Ben, Ediston, Zyrus Academy? Like, he took back everything. And he talking about him like, oh yeah, this little young boy who's half the age of my youngest boy. Like, bro, did you not see him, like, take out everybody? Like, tell everybody to fuck off, and if they didn't listen, he just wiped them out with fucking not soul fire, but the ether flames and shit. Like, this dude been living under a rock or something. Like, that's crazy. That's just crazy as hell. And it's Arthur Lewin, a human boy, less than half the age of my youngest son, the king of all Daikathan now? Perhaps I missed his coronation, but last I checked, he was a lance in service of the Elven Empire and nothing more, regardless of his personal strength and his service to Daikathan. That is crazy. That is crazy. Like, this motherfucker can come there and wipe everybody out, and ain't nothing nobody can do about it. And they're just talking about him like he's just like, you know, just some regular old lance or something. Crazy. So anyway, he was a lance in service of the Elven Empire and nothing more, regardless of his personal strength and his service to Daikathan. Not to mention the lies of his whereabouts that got so many killed, Lance Micah said under her breath. What? Bruh, Micah got problems too? Oh, nah, we gotta hear about this. So yeah, not to mention the lies of his whereabouts that got so many killed. Bruh, like, those deaths was worthy of the sacrifice, because guess what happened? Now y'all ain't gotta deal with Agrona anymore. I'm pretty sure you would give up, what, however many people that got killed to be able to get rid of Agrona. Like, it's fucking stupid. I mean, yeah, it's sad that they died, right? Every life is precious, and, you know, you don't want anybody to die. But sacrifices must be made, right? You know, so she should understand that more than anybody. Look at Aya, or Aya. You know, she died. She sacrificed her life to save the rest of y'all. So, I mean, get the fuck out of here. Anyway, I made note of the comment and set it aside to consider more deeply later. This is a problem that Arthur will need to address before it can fester. Yes, yes, yes. There was a glassy clatter as Lance. Oh yeah, Byron, man. Byron was gonna come. Man, if it was Byron or Veray, like Micah, we don't give a fuck about Micah, but Byron or Veray, any of those two, they come up, they gonna be like, Arthur, man, we gonna do whatever Arthur wants us to do. Arthur is the most loyal soldier. Arthur has been leading the people when we didn't have the strength. He taught us how to do mana rotation. If Arthur doesn't want us to do it, we ain't doing shit. You know, like that's what they got, the loyalty. They got the loyalty. So we'll see what Byron has to say. And then, you know, Byron, he's super loyal to Virion now. So if Virion was like, nah, I'm not gonna do this, Byron gonna be like, yeah, we ain't doing this. So, you know, any y'all got a problem, y'all gotta deal with me. And ain't nobody gonna fuck with Byron, so, you know, ain't nothing they can do. But anyway, let me go back to where's Byron? Shit, I forgot where I was at. Give me a second. Okay, so I think I'm right. There was a glassy clatter as Lance Byron White shifted his stance, and the steel of his boots ringing against the crystal slab on which we all stood. Arthur is not our king. Okay. But he nonetheless represents both our continent and our world in communication with the Asuras. If what we've learned is accurate, he is in their land right now, certainly treating with their lord. Can anyone else at this time claim to have done such a thing? I held back my smile. Ooh, Sarah's like, oh yeah, Byron, there you go, talk your shit, Byron. Okay. So he said treating, like, I guess like a treaty, like trying to negotiate some sort of pact or something like that. I guess that's what he mean by treating with their lord, not like, you know, sharing food or like, you know, something like that. Anyway, can anyone else at this time claim to have done such a thing? I held back my smile, appreciating Byron's straightforward defense of Arthur, and all the more because his words were true. Gideon cleared his throat. He pointedly met Virion's eyes, then Kathleen, and finally Carnelian Earthborn's. No, but Gideon cleared his throat, right? No, but I do think Dogar is right on one point. The Alacrian presence in Vildorio is a burden the city can't support. The cost of food alone, even prison gruel, is likely to bring the city to its knees in less than a month. Finally, the old scientist turned his attention to me. I propose, and I'm certain Arthur would agree, that the only way to move forward is to release the Alacrians and send them home. He had presented the argument, so Sarah would most likely agree with this for sure, right? He had presented the argument which we had developed together. Oh, so he's only coming up with this because they already talked about it beforehand. Okay, so which we had developed together in the days leading up to this meeting, with more sarcasm than I'd have preferred, but given both his audience and his station among them, I had to admit it was effective. I let a smile show through, not sharp or victorious, but soft and grateful, as if I were hearing his words for the first time. It had been difficult to communicate properly, as I had only recently been allowed to leave the prisons that still held the rest of my people. So she was in prison. She was like voluntarily like, I'm gonna just be in prison, you know, I ain't no enemy, so I ain't about to get out of here and kill anybody. Okay. So she'd been allowed to leave the prisons that still held the rest of her people, even those who have fought alongside the Dacathians, like Cara Denoir and Lyra Dryad. So Lyra's not coming to his rescue, but Cyrith could. The dwarf had shown little interest in speaking with me, and even after my release, I hadn't been allowed to leave Vildorio to communicate with the human leaders. Virion Erlith had been willing to meet with me, proving himself to be an understanding and patient man. The support of both Arthur and Lance Byron gave his voice an outsized weight in comparison to the station he now held. The support of both Arthur and Lance, so both of them gave him like extra weight, right? In comparison to the station he now held, but there was no longer an armed conflict to be commander of, and his people were disseminated and scattered. I expected him to stick to his values, but he lacked the strength to fight for my people when his own needed so much of him. It had been Gideon that had found the attentive ear I needed to bend. He saw the problems facing his people and my own clearly and without the haze of hatred or sorrow. For a man barely half my age, he was quite intelligent, but most of all, he was unburdened by an overdeveloped sense of propriety, meaning he could speak his mind openly even among the powerful. Those thoughts and others bounded swiftly through my mind in the beat of silence that followed Gideon's proclamation. I didn't expect this from Gideon. I mean, I know Gideon was smart, but then again, he is pragmatic though, right? Because he's like, okay, and he's logical, right? Because he was the one that was like, okay, what's the vote for the artifacts? Remember, he was like, okay, do we use the artifacts to empower the lances, or do we not use them, right? And then Gideon was like, he took one look at them like, nah, we don't need to use those. That's just trouble right there. And so he was like, yeah, I ain't gonna use them. And then, you know, you got Renia, yeah, I think it was her name, Renia, yeah. Renia was like, no, we don't need to use them, blah blah. So yeah, Gideon's been that guy, so that makes sense. So anyway, we've tried to live peacefully beside them already. Turn right around and attack us. Deserve justice for the crimes committed against them. Eager to see them gone, but we can't trust them. One of the lesser dwarves lords, a blister-cheeked woman with gray hair named Stoya, said above the rest, and who exactly gave you authority to make suggestions at this table? It was Virian's rough, calm voice that answered. Master Gideon has proved himself time and time again. Even if he lacks an official title after the dissolution of the Tri-Union Council, he has been integral to every stage of this war. Even now, he represents a significant military power in Daikath. Should those he represents not have a voice if we're to rely on their strength? He gazed around the room levelly. When no one responded, we continued. That said, I must ask, even if we wish to release the Alacrians, how could so many be sent back across the ocean? We lack ships capable of making the journey, and our capability for teleportation can't match that which brought them to our shores. We could send them all into the Relatombs, Lance Micah suggested with a shrug of her small soldiers. They'd come out of Alacria eventually, those that survived anyway. Virian frowned. Many would not. We would have no say over who lived and who died, should we be considering justice. Lady Kathleen Glader folded her hands together on the table in front of her. Keep in mind that there are children imprisoned here as we speak, and more still living on the very border of the Beastglades, left with only the protection of their non-mage caretakers. Any solution needs to ensure that we are not unjustly punishing those who had no choice in this war. Okay. Kathleen speaking up for the kids. Okay. Seeing my opening, I took a step forward. The small motion was enough to draw every eye to me. Many of those who raised arms against you and your people might be said to have had no choice in fighting this war. Alacria is not a nation where leaders earn the respect of their people. Rather, it is one where beings more ancient and powerful that we can fully appreciate control the people absolutely, even defining their very worth on the purity of their blood. It is a nation where any small disrespect, even unintentional, might mean death, not only for you, but your entire family. Even your friends and allies. There are those who refuse to fight, and we all watch them die horribly. When a god king tells you to go to war, you go. I let my head bow solemnly. At Arthur's urging, you allow many Alacrians to live in Daikathan alongside you, as your neighbors, and the trust you placed in us through Arthur was betrayed. But when we marched alongside the invading force that entered Valdoria searching for Arthur, it was not because you were our enemies. I trusted to find here a way to save as many of my people as possible, while endangering your own as little. I raised my chin and looked down at the seated lords and ladies defiantly. Can any of you truthfully say you'd have done differently? That, upon watching the magic within your own people's cores erupt and kill them, that you would simply let them die rather than comply? Because if you can tell me that, then perhaps you are a stronger leader than I. Or perhaps you are simply more ruthless with the lives of those you rely on, with the lives of those who rely on you. Okay, so she's talking about her decision to let the people die who was being forced to fight, rather than simply comply and do what Agrona wanted them to do for their own survival. And if they were in that same situation, would they have let the people die, or would they have just done what the all-powerful God King told them to do? And so that's a good point. That's a good point. So I guess it's like proof that, like, okay, her intentions are not admirable, but her intentions are like pure. That she really intends on trying to save lives and not hurt the Dacathans. Blinking faces regarded me with surprise. This surprise quickly turned to anger for some. A pathetic excuse, Durgar roared, to be called ruthless by an Alacrian. Another of the dwarven lords spat, his thick mustache quivering and flecked with spittle. Okay, I was messing up that word. Shit. You should watch your tone, Scythe, Lance Maya said, leaning forward in her chair, her one good eye narrowing. Why are they going after her, bro? Like, she didn't do anything. You should watch your tone. Bruh, Micah's irritating the fuck out of me. I don't get it. Carnelian Earthborn, her father, raised a hand. At ease, Micah, Lord Silvershell. Or maybe it's an act. It could be an act. He shook out his head. He shook out his mahogany hair and scratched at his matching beard. After all, we've invited Lady Ceres here to represent her people, and that is what she is trying to do. As for my part, he gave a long, thoughtful look at his daughter and the other Earthborn present. Hornfels, his nephew. I can't say what I have done in your situation, but I am not ready to condemn your entire people based on the orders of a corrupt lord. If we dwarves did that, right, I mean, what about the people who ruled them? Remember, they was going to betray everybody to get under the good graces of Agrona. I can't say that I've done the situation yet, but if we dwarves did that, few of us would have been left to fight this war at all. He glared at Daglon and Durgar. Or have you forgotten the Grey Sunders already? Daglon Silvershell sputtered. Forgotten? It was we who led the resistance, who fought and refused to submit, refused to take sides with... His eyes narrowed at Carnelian, who only smiled back. Yes, well, I can see your point, Lord Earthborn. Gideon cleared his throat. Commander Virion, I believe you asked a rather important question before this meeting started to go off the rails. How could we hope to send so many people back to Alacria at such a distance? Thanks to our Suran ally, Ren Kane the Fourth, I already have an answer. He raised his half-grown brows and looked smugly around the table. The Alacrians' last attack was accomplished with the use of a new teleportation technology. Well, I say new, but the reality is that it is close to what the ancient mages accomplished as I had ever seen. Despite their efforts to prevent it, we have captured one of the devices. It was a relatively simple matter to then reverse engineer the working copy. Okay, so they got a teleportation device. Durgar slapped his palm against the table. This is excellent. It puts us on even footing with their ability to strike at a moment's notice. With the speed and mobility of the Beast Corps. Bruh, like, look, he wants to use the Beast Corps, but he doesn't want Gideon, who is the representative of the Beast Corps, which is founded by Gideon and Arthur because they both helped create it along with Ren, right? But he doesn't want to actually give them a voice, right? When he used them, oh yeah, that the intelligence and the ability to rework the design and make that artifact, great, excellent work. Now let me use that for my own advantage, and also let me use that for my own advantage, and I'm gonna send you to go attack them to make sure you like they don't like. He's literally just using them to get whatever the fuck he wants, using the technology, using the Beast Corps and everything, but then they don't have no voice. Like, this shit is fucking crazy. So with the speed and mobility of the Beast Corps, this council lacks the authority to send my exosuits and their pilots anywhere at all. Gideon snapped. Yeah, motherfucker, like, hey, nobody listening to you. Durgar's face went red as a bloodberry. But his father spoke up before he could manage a response. It is clear that the Council of Lords has little stomach for further fighting. It will be best to listen, Durgar, and gauge the temperament of our peers before demanding more blood and war. Durgar, his jaw clenched several times beneath his beard, and he looked down at the table, meeting no one's eye. It seems, Lady Catherine said into the silence that followed, that we have means if we also have desire. On behalf of Sapin, I would suggest we follow Master Gideon's suggestion. She's calling Master Gideon. I would suggest that we follow Master Gideon's suggestion. Send these people home. Allow them to begin rebuilding their homes so that we might do the same. Virion nodded his agreement. Well said. On behalf of what remains of the elven nation of Elenwar, I agree. Among the Dwarven lords, Silvershale and Earthborn were the most powerful. They exchanged a look. How are they powerful? Like, please tell me, how are they powerful? Can Byron or Veray, which I know she's recovering, can't they go in there and just wipe everybody out? Like, there's no competition. Like, I don't understand how they're powerful. I really don't get it. I guess power in the sense of like the most influential because they have the most people, like as far as like population goes. I don't know. So they exchanged a look, and then Carnelian answered for them all. We agreed to release the prisoners and allow them to return home. There was a brief pause, and then, on one condition. I eyed the dwarf expectantly. An armed conflict. No victor backed down with an incentive. Great harm has been done to the nation of Darv by Agrona, and on his behalf, Carnelian said with a rehearsed air, we expect recompense from Alacria for his war crimes, justice and material wealth in the absence of justice and blood. So they want money. Okay. That's reasonable. I think that's reasonable. So they want money and wealth, resources, right? Maybe material, things like that. They want to use that material and that wealth to be able to help rebuild, right? Rebuild homes, rebuild societies. You know, lots of money is being used. So that actually makes a lot of sense. I think that that's fair. Because they didn't start this war, but, they didn't start this war, Alacria did. And even if they was being used, they still have a lot of damages and, a lot of tragedy because of this war. And even though Agrona's gone, the person who was leading all of it, that still doesn't take away all the people who sacrificed themselves and all the damage and destruction. So I think that the least you can do is give them some wealth in order for them to be able to help accelerate their rebuild. So I think that makes sense. You have taken the words straight from my mind, I said quickly, before anyone else could intervene. That captain has suffered greatly under Agrona's attacks. Perhaps not as much as Lacria has suffered under his rule, but your point is nonetheless valid. Although I am no longer in a position of political power and can make no promises for the dominions of Alacria, I am certain you can make any future leaders see the sense of your demands, just as I do. In fact, I would offer more. Now my focus turned to Virion. Although it was the Asura and not Alacria who did such horrible damage to Elenwar, a cowardly attack that took many Alacrian lives as well, we nonetheless will offer similar justice for the elves. Currently, the borders with the Beastglades are defended only by the villages my people set up there. Should the elves seek to rebuild their homeland, they will become prey for the raging monsters that have grown consistently more bold over these last months. I hope to lead some of my own people there in the villages we have already established to tend the border with the Beastglades. Perhaps in time, they might even become trading partners with the elves, as we've established hunting grounds and corps in the otherwise lifeless wasteland. Virion, his hands on the table, pushed back into his chair slightly, and the slight widening of his eyes were all that gave away his surprise. Ideally, I'd have sought his agreement beforehand, as I'd done with Gideon, but I trusted his sense of fairness and equity to win out. Your offer of aid is very welcome, he said at length. Carnelian was frowning deeply, and yet the agreement was that all Alacrians be sent back to their homeland. This will allow some to stay on our shores. This is Carnelian. He was talking. I think Carnelian was talking. And yet the agreement was that all Alacrians be sent back to their homeland. This will allow some to stay on our shores, where they have already proved a danger once. Well, it wouldn't be their shores, it would be Ellenwire shores. So ultimately, it'll kind of depend on Ellenwire, whoever the leader is, which is Virion, to make that decision. So his point is kind of invalid. Eleanor and the Beastglades are far from Darv, Virion said easily. The risk is firmly on the elves, and I'm willing to accept that risk in exchange for Lady Sarah's offer of support and protection for my people as we begin to attempting to revive the Elshire forest. Dargar muttered something about the softness of elves, drawing a cold look from Virion's assistant, a middle-aged elven woman named Sarah Triskin, I think. There is yet more we might offer, I continued. The technology of Valkyrie is advanced. We will share our knowledge. Agrona was only one Asura. There's an entire nation of them out there still. Any one of which could be just as dangerous to us. Alacria will share our knowledge because it is that, not virtual blood, that makes us strong. That Catherine and Alacria may assure continued peace between our two continents by equalizing our nations in power. But as our worlds grow stronger in total, we also help to safeguard ourselves against future Asuran involvement. I withdrew a leather-bound chef of parchment. A dwarven attendant took it and carried it around the table to Lady Kathleen as I indicated. She took it with care, regarding it curiously, then turned searching eyes back on me. I start with a gift for Lance Beret Are, I think I said, who I believe will benefit greatly from this knowledge, which was taken from Tegra and Kalin before we fled Alacria, at the cost of many Alacrian lives. Kathleen's expression hardened, and she gave a single sharp nod as she set the bound parchment on the table and rested her hands protectively atop it. I wonder what this is, though. Because at first I was thinking, like, okay, maybe it was like a horn, maybe to give her some extra mana so that way she can kind of recover faster. But maybe it's something else. I don't know. So Kathleen's expression hardened, and she gave a sharp nod as a parchment, and she rested her hands protectively atop it. Now, unless there is any further business, there is much to do to organize my people for travel. Master Gideon, please bring me the specifications of these portals so we can establish a timeline. I let my gaze sweep across the room, staying respectful but businesslike. Commander Virion, I must speak with my people to see who is willing to return to the border villages, and then I will provide you numbers. Turning away, I walked confidently toward the closed doors, or the closed drawers. The startled guard straightened, looking from me to someone behind me, then hurried to open the doors. As I marched quickly through the palace, I felt Virion's mana signature follow after, noting the silence of his footsteps as he hurried to walk at my side. That was well done in there, he said quietly. It seems you got exactly what you hoped for, unless I've read things incorrectly. I did what all leaders do, sought allies to support my positions, I answered in the same low tone. I hope you don't misunderstand. It wasn't my intention to manipulate, but rather to ensure a strong bargaining position. He raised his hands and gave me a rough smile. I've seen the game played for a long time, but seeing you in action makes it all the more clear that we should be on the same side of things to come. Uh-oh, so Virion's giving her respect, like, salute to the game. Okay. That is more true than you may realize, I thought. But out loud, I only bid him farewell for now. The place was soon behind me as I marched with a rapid surety toward the closest of the prison wards, which was not far down the curving highway. The outer guards barely twitched their beards at my approach, but the warden within hurried to retrieve the keys and allow me into the cells. In the hours and days after the battle, my people had been commingled without thought into cells. Many even held in the bunkers built in the base of the city to protect the civilians. Several fights had broken out between Agrona's loyalists and those who had followed me out of Alacria to begin with. It had only been with Lance Byron's assistance that I convinced our jailers to separate the loyalists and place them into one of the newly dug out prisons. Now, the upper cell contained mostly those who were least a threat to the Dicathans and those most in need of protection from potential reprisal. I stopped to greet and check on members of the Ramsayer blood, which had suffered great losses during the battle. And then on the Arkwrights, Umberters and Frost. Bell Roses and Eisenharts. I greeted young Seth Melview and Mela Fairweather, interrupting their reading as they poured through a book together, something one of the dwarven guards had given them. That look of awkwardness and surprise at being addressed as a scythe, even if I no longer held that title, was barely a flicker on their faces now. Okay, I felt eyes following me and turned to catch Corbett and Lenora Denoir watching me carefully. Kara turned away from some conversation with them and dipped respectfully. Lady Saris, what news? I gestured for her to follow me, then continued deeper into the prison, searching for Lyra and Sarith. Oh, Sarith is there. Damn, he's not going to be able to help either. I don't know. I don't know who's going to help out Alaric, man. I thought I was holding up for Sarith, but it's not going to be him. Yeah. Searching for Lyra and Sarith. Kara did not ask any more questions, but followed me patiently. I found them in one of the few cells that had solid walls to provide some privacy for the conversations within. Normally, it would be locked and warded, but like all the other cells, it was open into the central chamber, affording those imprisoned here some level of freedom to intermingle and move about the complex. Even if the lords of Eldorio had wanted to clap every Alacrian mage in mana suppression cuffs, they wouldn't have had enough for every 10% of the prisoners, but I had specifically convinced them to allow Lyra and Sarith, among the strongest of those jailed after the battle, to go without such precautions. So, like, just in case something happens and they need to fight. That makes sense. Lyra was sitting cross-legged on her bunk with her back against the wall, her flame-red hair pulled around her head like a halo, bright against the stained off-white stone. Cyrus stood against the opposing wall, his thumbs hooked through his belt. His normally well-groomed appearance was slightly disheveled, his hair unkempt around his horns. Imprisonment hadn't agreed with him, and I knew he was eager to return to the fight, whatever that might look like now. Both looked grave, as if they were discussing something quite serious, although they looked at me in tandem. Neither spoke to ask what had happened. Instead, they waited. I gave them a soft smile, and their demeanors relaxed. It went well then, Sarith said finally, pushing himself away from the wall with his elbows. More or less as expected. Yes, I confirmed. I closed the door behind Kara, then activated the muffling wards with a pulse of mana. Their eagerness for a simple solution overwhelmed their baser, I think that's how you say that, desires. And with Master Gideon there to provide solutions to their concerns, it was fairly straightforward. Okay. So they already had the shit pre-planned and everything. Lyra let out a slow breath between pursed lips. Forgive me for saying so, but I wasn't sure if the tables were turned. Who in Alacria would have shown the same grace? That's a good point. That's a good point. But I guess Saris would have shown the same grace, right? Probably the only one, right? Something you should remember in the days to come, I answered, my tone growing somber. As we begin to rebuild our nation, there is much we can learn from the Dicathians' treatment of each other, of how the Dicathians treat each other. I can't stop thinking about what must be happening back in Alacria, Kara said, half to herself. I reached out and lifted her chin with a finger, meeting her eyes. Right now, there is a vacuum of power. Already those high blood loyal to Agrona will be struggling to fill it. But there are still many who will be working for the betterment of our nation as well. Removing Agrona was only the first step. And, Cyrus hesitated, what about our plans? What plans is he talking about? What about our plans? So removing Agrona was only the first step. And, Cyrus hesitated, what about our plans? We'll have to judge the state of our home continent. I looked from Lyra to Cyrus to Kara, lingering on her the longest. It is certain that the conflict isn't over. The fight to come will be for the very soul of Alacria. Okay. Okay, so I guess the fight to come. So what does she know? Like, how does she know it's gonna be some big fight for the soul of Alacria? You know, like she also knows that, okay, you know, Arthur needs to be like negotiating with with the Asurus and Ephiodus, you know, and she was saying like hopefully he can what did she say in the beginning? She was like hopefully he can let me see what she said. Yeah, so she said that it was a mistake on Arthur's part. She cannot see all the ends, and only time would tell. So much work undone in an instant. I call myself blah blah blah. But if Arthur isn't able to dissuade them, the swords of Ephiodus are now potentially an even greater threat. Like, how does she know that Arthur needs to dissuade the sword? It's like it's almost as if she knows the history of the Asuras wiping out all the civilization. Well, not the Asuras, but the dragons, right? The Indrath clan, wiping out all the previous civilizations. And so let's go off that, right? So if she knows that, then now this all makes sense. So she knows that Arthur, now since they got a Grona, right? They got a Grona, they got what they wanted. Now he needs to convince them, in her mind, not to annihilate all the civilians anymore. But they couldn't have annihilated everybody, because if they annihilated everybody, then the people wouldn't be able to repopulate. Because remember, like in the past or whatever, they will come down, they'll get strong, they'll grow, and then they'll come down and they'll annihilate them, right? But it couldn't have annihilated everybody, because over time they'll go and rebuild and repopulate, and then they'll annihilate their ass again. Like, so they don't kill. I wish Turtle Me would go into more specifics as far as like how, okay, like for example, I wish you would go into more specifics as far as like how many people are on the planet. Is it just Alacria and Dicathan and Ephiodus? Like, is there any other parts of the world that we're not aware of yet, right? And then also, I wish they would go into like how many people was actually killed, because like he doesn't. It's like society just rebuilds. And I'm just like, well, if they killed everybody, how did they rebuild? You know, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with the people after the Indrath clan, the dragons, they went and wiped out the Jinn. In my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, if they wiped out the Jinn, then there shouldn't be no more Jinn. But we know that some Jinn ended up in with Mordain and his people, right? But then again, what about Arthur? Well, not Arthur, he don't count. But then what about Renia? What about Alice? They're all descendants from the Jinn. So how are their great grandfathers and grandmothers, how are they repopulated and able to create them if all the Jinn got wiped out? They all couldn't have gotten wiped out, because they got people who's able to use spells that they only can use because they have Jinn ancestry. So like, where did the people go? Like, did they leave 1,000 people, 100,000 people? Like, it don't make any sense. And he never was really clear on that. So it's like one big plot hole in the story where I'm just like, okay, if all these people got annihilated, then how are they able to repopulate? I don't know. But this was straight. This was straight. I guess they got their plans. She's preparing for the next step. They're gonna go back to Alacria. There's this power struggle now. She's already kind of prepared for it, so that makes sense. And she's looking at basically the threat between the Asuras and the people now. I think that she's aware of their history of just genociding all the, the population. So that's what makes sense in my mind. But but this is good though. This is cool. This is cool. Today is Monday, so now that I'm caught up, I should be able to get another video out probably Saturday or Sunday when the next chapter comes out, and then I'll just kind of go from there. I'll let you guys know too that I'm reading, so I'll let you guys know what I'm reading right now. So right now I'm reading He Who Fights with Monsters. I'm caught up with that. I'm currently reading that by Shirtaloom. I think I say that. I'm reading Primal Hunter. Caught up with that. But I just recently started reading this book. It's called let me tell you what it's called really quick. You can check that out if you're interested and haven't had anything to read in a minute or something like that. It's okay. I'm gonna say that the story is okay. I'll probably give it like a 7 out of 10 right now. But I'm following it. I'm curious to see how powerful the main character is gonna get. But it is called, the first book, I think there's like 8 or 9 books or some shit like that. But the first book is called Shade's First Rule by AFK. That's what I'm reading. And so it's another like RPG, light RPG type of story. And it's okay. It's okay. I'm still waiting for the main character to get better as a main character, because right now he's just kind of, he's okay. He's a little bit too humble. He's a little bit too soft in my mind. But I'm waiting for him to like see. I'm waiting to see what's going to happen with him as he get more powerful. Because basically, it's another story where like, you know, he's destined to be the most powerful person in the world, and he's been like thrown into these events that are like out of his control. He didn't ask for any of this shit, but he's like the chosen one. He's like Neo. He has like the highest potential out of all the gods. He can ascend past the gods, that type of thing. And so basically it's just his journey, because people are trying to kill him because of how powerful he could potentially become. And so he's kind of, you know, journeying through and trying to get more powerful and level up and shit before he can actually end up getting killed, because they're afraid of his potential power. But then, but he might be a puppet at somebody else's whim and being used, and there might be this plan for him to do what they want to do. It's all this type of shit. But the story's cool though. It's cool, and I like the fact that I like his little posse that he got going on, like his friends, and then his one potential love interest. I kind of like their whole dynamic, like their whole little group. I kind of like their camaraderie and how they like banter off of one another and shit. So that's kind of what's keeping me into it. But yeah, we'll see. I want to see how powerful this dude gonna become. Is he gonna be just like the god among gods and just like wipe off people with like a fucking his breath or some shit? You know, I'm really curious. So we'll see. But that's what I'm reading now. And so yeah. But I know there's other stories I need to read. I know I've suggested Lord of the Mysteries and stuff. So there's also that. But yeah, that's what I'm doing so far. And that's kind of taking up a lot of my time while I'm driving. But yeah, that's it for me though. The chapter was cool. I'll probably give this chapter like an 8 out of 10. It was cool. Really curious to see what's gonna happen next. But anyway, I appreciate y'all joining in though. You know, it's been a minute. I haven't done a live in a while, but appreciate y'all joining in. I appreciate any likes you guys give the video. I need the likes. Definitely need the likes. Keep on growing the channel and shit. And I can talk about some other stuff. But anyway, appreciate y'all joining in. Check you guys out in the next video. Peace out, man. Y'all have a good night.